Hi everyone, Ian from Bond Behaviours here, and today we're talking about what goes on in the dog's brain when they come across another dog. Because a lot of outdated information out there is still suggesting that they're trying to dominate and submit to one another, trying to establish who is the more dominant one, who is the pack leader, all of that crap. They're not trying to do that. If any questions around that, go back to watching the Theory of Mind video. I'm not going to go into that today, because what we're going to concentrate on is what they are actually trying to achieve. So what we've got to remember is when these dogs are going up to one another and coming across each other in the street, 9 times out of 10 these are strangers. We're not talking about dogs that know each other here. We're talking about strangers and acquaintances and bumping into them randomly. They're not thinking we're now going to be magic best friends. It doesn't work like that. Survival says treat anything new as a threat until you can be sure otherwise. So the first thing they want to know from these individuals is, are you a threat? Am I safe? And remember, going back to that Theory of Mind video, when they are introducing themselves to one another, they are not trying to influence the other's emotions. So what the individuals are doing is communicating how they feel, regardless of how it makes the other one feel. This is just how I'm presenting myself. And what they're after in return is feedback. They want to know whether this is going to be a good situation or if there's going to be conflict. And ultimately, of course, they're trying to avoid conflict. And then it comes down to their lack communication patterns. What's worked for them in the past with the objective of maintaining safety and avoiding conflict. And this is where we used to describe some dogs as dominant and some dogs as submissive, when really neither are neither. Dominance is not a personality trait. It is not something you can describe a dog as being. Dominance is a result of an outcome of a situation. It's nothing to do with this. So, the dog that postures, the dog that makes itself big, the dog whose ears go up, the dog that holds a deep stare, the dogs whose hackles go up, they're the ones that we used to call dominant, the ones that rush in. These dogs are probably the most insecure dogs. They're so guarded that they can't drop their guard, they can't relax, and they actually can't be around others without pressing them for information. They just need to know that everybody around them isn't a threat to them. Now, being that insecure and being dominant doesn't really add up. So I don't really know how they ended up with the dominant dominant name. It's just horseshit. And then we've got the other end of the scale, the ones that we used to call submissive. Now, these guys are the ones that lick the face, the ones that roll on the back, the ones that make themselves small. And we used to say that these are being submissive to the more dominant dog. Again, submissive is not a personality trait. It's not a thing that you can describe a dog as being. What they are trying to do is exactly the same as the other ones. Exactly the same. They're trying to maintain a safe and healthy relationship with them and avoiding conflict. So they just really want this to go well. And both dogs in the past are still alive today. The old one that we used to describe as dominant, the other one that used to be described as submissive, both of their body language traits have worked in the past, and so they are repeating them because it worked for the dog. That's how dogs learn, via consequences. They're always trying to achieve positive ones and avoid doing behaviours that result in negative ones. What we've got to remember is introducing yourself to a stranger can be stressful. It's not a surprise that these dogs are actually getting agitated. They've just stumbled across somebody in the street and got into each other's personal space. It's weird. So they're now having this awkward conversation. And what we can do when we're looking at it is watch which way they're going. Because I expect them to be a bit odd. When they get into another dog's personal space, I expect it to be a bit weird. It's like when you meet somebody new, hey, how you doing? It's a little bit odd, right? But it's then how you cope after that. Is the dog actually getting more and more stressed? Is the dog starting to really push for more feedback by getting more and more pressing? Give me more feedback, mate. I don't know what you're giving me, so I'm going to come in harder. Again, that's what we used to call dominant. It's even more insecure. He's actually just so insecure that he's not reading the information, or he's not getting the information he wants, and so pressing harder for it. Likewise with the dog that is showing the initial pacifying behaviours. Those dogs, if they start rolling around their backs and moving really fast, it's like the equivalent of a nervous talker. It's gone too far. It's like, oh my God, I can't think. What's happening to both of these dogs at this time is their arousal levels going through the roof. And the problem with that is the higher the arousal level, the lower the ability to process information. So no matter, at this point, when they're overstimulated, it doesn't matter what feedback they're getting. It's not being registered, it's not being read. And this is where the dog starts to get antisocial. Because this is a conversation. When you're meeting somebody, it's a series of invites, back-offs, and that's meant to be heard. And it only gets really antisocial when the other one's not listening to the other. This is why we really encourage people to keep their dog calm as a baseline. Calm first, introduce, the adrenaline's going to go up one way or another. So might as well start off low, because that way they can read the information and they can respond appropriately to it, they can communicate calmly, and everybody has a reasonable conversation. If you go in with a hyperactive dog in the first place, before it's even seen someone, think about the message that that's sending the other individual it's meeting. It's like running into an addict on the street that is high as hell. And of course, I always say to my clients, like, would you want to meet that dog? If it was a person coming down the street at you, would you want to go and say hello to it? No, you cross the road, it's bloody mental. Same with the dog that is really, it really is just like over the top and like really nervous and evading. Don't force it in. It is actively trying to avoid the situation. Dragging it in there is flooding it, and he's going to have the weirdest conversation in the world. So people always ask me, how do we socialize the dog that is really nervous and trying to avoid? How do we socialize the dog that just resorts to play without thinking? How do we socialize the dog that doesn't listen to others? How do we socialize the dog that's aggressive? It's the same every single time, to be honest. What we're seeing is hyperarousal on stress. So we don't flood it. People forget that they're non-verbal communicators. They use eye contact and body language to communicate. Sniffing butt and getting in their face is something that friends do. And it shouldn't be something that we expect our dogs to just tolerate from strangers. I don't go and hug every person on the street that I meet. That'd be weird, and I would expect some really bad feedback from anybody that I did, really. It's odd. So something to remember, guys, is take your dog in at their pace. This is where listening, understanding first of all what they're communicating, what their body language is saying, listening to it, and then responding appropriately. So as you take your dog in, look for the fiddles, look for the early onset of stress. If it starts to lip lick, if it starts to freeze, if it starts to avoid, if it starts to hackles to come up, all of these fiddles, they're actually listed on the website. Go and have a look, because this is the early onset of stress. Pause, take your time. There is no need to close the gap any further. The dog is communicating, I actually don't need you to come any further. This is about as far as I'm comfortable. So take your time. Make the dog feel comfortable. If you use positive reinforcement in that frame of mind, what you're doing is making the dog feel comfortable. It's like if you've had a shit day and someone gives you a glass of wine or a beer. In that moment, it makes you feel better, it makes you relax, and then you can go and take on more. It's a really simple thing of, as the dog starts to get stressed, you de-stress it, and then you allow it to take on more. If the dog really, really doesn't want to be there, leave. Don't push it any harder that day. That's as much as that dog could take that day. That's that dog's choice. That's not for you to deem this situation stressful or not. That dog is communicating it's stressful. Whether you deem it a threat or not is completely irrelevant. Some people say to me, it's small, I don't know why it was so scared. I always reply, I'm scared of wasps. And they're tiny, but I'm scared shitless of them. So whether you deem it a threat is completely irrelevant. Listen to your dog. If your dog deems it a threat or deems it stressful, then don't flood it. It's that simple. And take our time to socialise these dogs calmly, and everybody wins. A really common mistake that people, I think, make is assuming that play is socialising. And if we go out with that mindset, we are going to create a bunch of idiot dogs that only ever learn how to run around like gooses with dogs. Social dog is a dog that can react appropriately to the situation. It can listen. Socialising by definition has no play in it whatsoever. It's building a tolerance of others in our personal space. So when we do take our dog out and we are trying to socialise them, it's really important to know what socialising is, guys. Look it up. Take them out and build their tolerance gradually at their pace. If we take the dogs out and try and hype them up into hyperarousal, then that is the learned association that we are creating. And believe me, nobody has ever called me because they can't rev their dog up. They are all calling me because they can't calm them down. Take them out calmly in the first place, let them go a little bit crazy when it's appropriate and the situation, the environment around them allows for this, and then you can bring them back to baseline. If we take them out calmly and then we end up chasing our shadows and running around after them all the time and trying to keep up with a dog that is a lot faster than us, then we are setting ourselves and them to fail. So, in a nutshell, guys, they're not trying to dominate one another, they're not trying to submit to one another, they are just trying to make sure that the individual they've met is not a threat and they want it to go well. Beyond that, let them walk away from the ones they're just, I don't care about. Let them play with the ones they want to play with. But let the dog choose using its thinking side of the brain, not when it's overstimulated. That's the key to socialising. Alright guys, leave your comments below and give us as much feedback as you want. We'll get back to you as soon as we can, and enjoy your day. Thanks.